Some of the background from M4 for me comes from a story of the Old Testament. I was reading and listening to the story of Johnatan in 1 Samuel chapter 14. And it's a quite significant story. It's this time in the Israelitic history where they are really under pressure. Saul's people, his army, is withdrawn in the cave where they're full of fear, afraid of the big Philistine army. And in that cave, they hide themselves, full of fear. But in that situation, God started to speak to a young guy called Johnatan. And he said, and you can read the story, he said, well, maybe God will do something. Maybe the situation we are in is not the final picture of the future. Maybe there's another story. Maybe God wants to do something. And then he said, very significant word, if we are few or many, doesn't matter. If God speak, I will do it. And then he moved out of the cave, took with him an armor bearer who helped him and stood beside him. And then he moved to the forefront of the Philistine army. And he talked with God, and he felt confident that God was speaking to him to move into and attack the army in the mountain. And what happened? God gave Johnatan a victory. And God used this young guy with his adventurous mind and thing that he wanted to see. He had another dream. He wasn't confident in the situation. He wanted to see something else. And God used him. And God's presence came down. And they won a big victory. And when the story of what God was doing came back to the cave, the whole Israeli army came out and fight together with Johnatan. And they won one of the biggest victory in the Israeli history. And even it says further on in the chapter that the people of Israel who was assimilated into the Philistine people came back to Israeli people and started to fight with them. But how does this happen? It started with a young person, with a calling from God, not satisfied with what was there, looking into the future with another picture in his mind, and moved out in obedience. Why do I tell this story? I believe God is speaking all over Europe of this picture. God is moving out thousands of young people with another picture of church in their mind, with a picture of church that they can reach their own generation. And he moves them out, not in rebellion, but in obedience. I don't think rebellion is the way of going, but obedience to God. And God is speaking to thousands of older teenage people in the 20s to move out and plant churches that can reach their own generation. And when they see the new picture of church and start to act in obedience and planting thousands of new churches in our European post-Christian context, I think something will happen. And even the old traditional church will start to move together, and we will see a new face of the church in our own continent. But where does it start? I don't believe it starts for the young people to be in the cave discussing everything, but move out in obedience to God, to God's call, not in rebellion, but in obedience for what He has called you to. And I think this is a story for Europe and a story of what we will see in Europe. Thousands of young people moving in, planting something new to reach their own generation of Christ and create a new picture of the church in Europe.